Hello students, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is part 2 of chapter 5, life process, and today we are going to discuss animal nutrition. So students, the topic that we'll cover are nutrition in animals, different steps in the process of nutrition in animals. Then we'll discuss about nutrition in amoeba and nutrition in human beings. Animals are heterotrophic, that is, they depend on other organisms for their food. All the living organisms on the basis of the mode of nutrition has been divided into different types such as autotrophs and heterotrophs. And this has been discussed in detail in the previous video. So please refer the previous video. And animals on the basis of food habits have been divided into three types: herbivores, carnivores and omnivores. Herbivores वो एनिमल हैं जो केवल प्लांट्स पे ही निर्भर होते हैं अपने भोजन के लिए, जैसे कि गोट, काऊ, शीप. कार्निवोर्स वो एनिमल्स हैं जो दूसरे एनिमल पे निर्भर होते हैं अपने भोजन के लिए और they do not take plants. So carnivores are the animals which eat other animals and not plants. Example: lion, tiger, wolf and vulture. Omnivores are the animals which eat both plants and animals. Example: crow, man, dog, sparrow and ant. In this slide, we will discuss the different steps in the process of nutrition in animals. And the process of nutrition consists of 5 steps: ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. Ingestion is simply eating the food, that is, taking in food through the mouth. Digestion is breakdown of large insoluble food molecules which cannot be observed as such into small water soluble molecules which can be easily absorbed. Absorption is that when the food molecules become small and soluble, it can easily pass through the wall of the intestine and enter the blood. And this is called absorption. So absorption is simply the food molecules, small soluble food molecules, to enter the blood through the wall of the intestine. And now assimilation is, now the food has been absorbed in the blood. So what will blood do? Blood will carry it to all parts of the body, and there it will be taken up by the body cells, produce energy, and this energy will be used for growth and repair, and this is called assimilation. And egestion is that the food we eat is not completely digested. It cannot be completely digested, so the part that remains undigested is removed from the body, and this is called egestion. And the undigested food is removed in the form of feces, and this is called as egestion. Here we are going to learn about nutrition in amoeba. So we all know that amoeba is unicellular. Uni means one and cellular means cell, that is single celled, and holozoic mode of nutrition. Now what do we mean by holozoic mode of nutrition? That is when the animal takes complex solid food and digest it inside the body. That is, the animal is taking complex solid food and digest it inside the body. So it is known as holozoic mode of nutrition. And The process of obtaining food by amoeba is called as phagocytosis, which we will discuss in the next slide. And all the process of nutrition are performed by a single cell of amoeba. So what did we learn? Let us summarize it. That amoeba is unicellular, single-celled and holozoic mode of nutrition. That is, the complex solid food is taken and digested inside the body of the amoeba. And this process of obtaining food by amoeba is called phagocytosis. And this all process of nutrition in amoeba is performed by a single cell of amoeba. Here we are going to study the process of nutrition in a single cell of amoeba. So the process of nutrition consists of the same 5 steps: ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. So we'll begin with ingestion. So we can see here, this is amoeba with an irregular body shape and a nucleus. It has no mouth और a fixed place for ingestion. अमीबा में mouth या कोई fixed place ingestion के लिए नहीं होती है. So when a food particle, this you can see, this is a food particle. It senses a food particle. What it does? It forms a finger-like projection called pseudopodia. So when amoeba comes near the food particle or senses the food particle, it forms finger-like projections called pseudopodia. And these pseudopodia begin to surround the food. And here you can see the food particle has been completely surrounded. And then what happens? The membrane of the pseudopodia fuses, forming a food vacuole. And this process is called as phagocytosis. So this process of engulfing the food particles by amoeba with the help of finger-like projections called pseudopodia is known as phagocytosis. Now begins the second step, that is the digestion. So when the food particle enclosed in the food vacuole is taken inside, then what happens? The enzymes from the surrounding cytoplasm enters the food vacuole and breaks it into small and soluble molecules via chemical reactions. Now the food has been broken down, digested. Now the digested food in the food vacuole is absorbed directly in the cytoplasm by diffusion. So what will happen? The digested food will, by diffusion, will move into the cytoplasm, and as amoeba is a single cell, so the digested food will spread from the food vacuole into the whole of amoeba cell and the food vacuole will disappear. Now when absorption has taken place, the next is assimilation. Now this the food absorbed is used to obtain energy, and this will help in the growth of amoeba. That is, amoeba will grow in size and will reproduce. Now comes the last step, that is egestion. When a considerable amount of waste accumulates, it moves towards the membrane, cell membrane, and the cell membrane will rupture. And the waste food will be thrown out. This is known as egestion. Now we will discuss about nutrition in human beings. We'll talk about nutrition in human beings. So the digestive system in human being consists of alimentary canal and associated glands. It consists of alimentary canal and associated glands. Associated glands aid in digestion. So the alimentary canal consists of mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and anus. You can see here this is the mouth, then this is pharynx region, this is esophagus, then comes stomach, then small intestine, then comes the large intestine, and then comes anus. So the alimentary canal begins from mouth and ends at anus. And the associated glands are salivary glands in the mouth, liver, and pancreas. So salivary glands will be present in the mouth, and this is the liver, this is liver, and this is the pancreas. Through this figure, we'll revise the parts of the alimentary canal and the associated glands, as this question is very important. So let us begin. This is mouth, this is mouth, this is teeth, then this is pharynx, this is esophagus, here comes stomach, then comes small intestine, this is the large intestine, this is rectum, and this is anus. So what are the parts of alimentary canal? Mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and anus. Now we'll talk about the associated glands. So here you can see this is salivary gland in the mouth, and this is liver, and this is the pancreas. So how many glands? Salivary gland, liver, and pancreas. The first part of alimentary canal is the mouth, and food is ingested through the mouth. That is, we take in food through our mouth. Now comes the oral cavity. So you can see this is the lip, this is the teeth, this tongue, and this is the hard palate, and this is the soft palate. So the space between our lips and our teeth, that is, this is the vestibule, and the region behind the teeth is the oral cavity. So the space between our lips and teeth is called the oral vestibule. Oral vestibule between lips and teeth. So they are enclosed by lips externally, internally by our gums and teeth, and on the sides by cheek. And behind the teeth is the oral cavity, which comprises the palate. You can see here, this is the hard palate, this is the soft palate, and this is the tongue, and this is the oral cavity. So what is palate? Palate is the roof of the oral cavity, and the roof of the oral cavity contains hard palate. Now comes the tongue. Tongue is muscular, glandular, and attached to the base of the oral cavity. So you can see this is the oral cavity, and this at the base is the tongue which is attached. So what is tongue? Tongue is muscular, glandular, and located at the base of the oral cavity. Now the upper surface of the tongue has tiny projections which are known as lingual papillae. Lingual means tongue. So the surface of the tongue has tiny projections which are called lingual papillae. Now lingual papillae are of the following types: circumvallate, fungiform, filiform, and foliate. So you can see here, these are this is the region for the circumvallate. This is region is for filiform. Here comes the fungiform, and on the sides are the foliate. And this is circumvallate. Teeth. Humans are diphyodont. Di means two and don't means teeth. That is, we have two sets of teeth. The first is the milk or the deciduous, which can be replaced, and the second is the permanent teeth, which cannot be replaced. Now we have four types of teeth: one incisor, second canine, third premolars, and the fourth one is molar. Incisors are used for cutting, canines for tearing, premolars for chopping, and molars for grinding and chewing. Here you can see this is the upper jaw and this is the lower jaw. In the upper jaw, if we talk about one half of the jaw, we have two incisor, one canine, two premolar, and three molars. That is 2, 1, 2, 3. That is total 8. And the similar set of teeth on the other side, that is 2 incisor, 1 canine, 2 premolar, and 3 molar. That is 2, 1, 2, 3. That is 8, having 16 teeth on the upper jaw, and in the similar manner 16 teeth, 8 on the either side on the lower jaw. That is total 32. As I told you in the previous slide, that alimentary canal begins from mouth, and that is the ingestion of food, that is the taking in of food is through the mouth, and this is known as ingestion. Not only ingestion, but digestion also begins in the mouth. So mouth cavity contains teeth, tongue, and salivary gland. Teeth cuts the food into small pieces, chews it, and grinds it, which comes under physical digestion. Then the teeth grinds the food to form a structure which is called bolus. So what is bolus? Bolus is the chewed food in the mouth. Now comes into action salivary glands. Now salivary glands pose saliva, and tongue helps in the mixing of saliva with food. Salivary glands are three in number: parotid, which is a paired gland; submandibular, this is also paired; and sublingual gland, this is unpaired. Now the location of parotid gland, you can see this is the parotid gland. So this is below, you can see this is below and in front of the ear. So this is below and in front of each ear. And via Stenson's duct, it opens on the upper second molar. It opens opposite the upper second molar. and its secretion is watery or the serous and contains amylase enzyme which aids in the digestion of starch. And this is also one of the largest salivary gland. Then comes the next, that is submandibular. This is the submandibular gland. Submandibular, as the name itself indicates, sub, that is below, and mandibular, that is mandible, that is beneath or below the lower jaw or the mandible. And via Wharton's duct, it opens at the floor of the mouth besides the lingual frenulum. Now, what is lingual frenulum? This is a fold of mucous membrane. You can see this. This is lingual frenulum. And what is lingual frenulum? It is a fold of mucous membrane that connects the underside of the tongue to the floor of the mouth. That is, via lingual frenulum, the tongue on its lower side is connected to the floor of the mouth. ये कह सकते हैं कि लिंगुअल फ्रेन्यूलम के द्वारा टंग अपने निचले हिस्से के द्वारा माउथ के फ्लोर से कनेक्टेड होती है. And the secretion is mixed and predominantly serous and produces the majority of resting saliva. Resting saliva means that the saliva which is produced in the resting condition, that is even in the absence of stimulus. Then comes the sublingual gland. Sublingual gland under the tongue. Under the tongue, tongue ke niche. So you can see this is the tongue and this is the sublingual gland. And it is on the floor of the mouth and via ducts of Rabinus, it is multiple small ducts and one large Bartholin's duct opens along the sublingual fold. It is mixed and mainly mucus and smallest of the three glands and secretes, lubricates the oral mucosa. In the previous slide, I told you that the parotid salivary gland secretes amylase, which aids in the digestion of starch. So, in the mouth, starch is chemically broken down into smaller sugar molecules by salivary amylase, which is also known as ptyalin. salivary amylase को और क्या कह सकते हैं हम? टाइलिन कह सकते हैं. तो सलाइवा क्या कर रहा है? एक तरीके से स्टार्च के डाइजेशन में हेल्प कर रहा है. तो सलाइवा helps in chemical digestion and the enzyme action begins as soon as food enters the mouth. आपको पता ही है कि जैसे ही हम कोई भोजन लेते हैं, जैसे ही खाना हमारे मुंह में जाता है, सलाइवा सिक्रीट होने लगता है. तो इसलिए हम ये कह सकते हैं कि जैसे ही फूड हमारे माउथ में एंटर करता है, this enzymatic action starts and this aids in the digestion of starch. Now see, the next part of the alimentary canal is the pharynx. Now pharynx is the common passage for food and air. What do we mean by this? Let me explain in the figure. You can see this is our mouth and this is the oral cavity. And this is the nostrils and this is the nasal passage and this is the air. So now see here, the food is also coming in this. The food is also coming here and the air is also coming here. So this is a common passage for both food and air. And now this is the trachea and this is the esophagus. Now what will happen? The air will pass into the trachea, and the food is to be passed into the esophagus. And this is the epiglottis. Now if this trachea remains open and the food enters, then the person can die. So what is to be done? This epiglottis has to close this trachea. So the epiglottis moves downwards. You can see here it has moved downwards and it has closed the trachea so that the food may not enter inside the trachea and will pass into the esophagus. Once the food has passed, the epiglottis will again move upwards, the trachea will open and the air will pass into the trachea and move towards the lungs. So what is epiglottis doing? It is preventing the entry of food into the windpipe. Now the next part of the alimentary canal is esophagus. Esophagus is muscular tube through which food passes from the mouth to the stomach. So we can say that esophagus connects mouth to stomach. Now the digested food which is swallowed by tongue goes into the food pipe called esophagus, and esophagus contracts and expands, and this contraction and expansion of the esophagus is known as peristaltic movement. And due to the peristaltic movement, the food is able to move downwards into the esophagus and reaches the stomach. Now the opening of the esophagus into the stomach is called cardiac orifice or cardia, and this takes the food into the stomach. The next part of the alimentary canal is the stomach, and it is J-shaped on the left side of the abdomen at the upper part of the abdominal cavity. So now let us understand this in the given figure. The region between the neck and the diaphragm is known as thoracic cavity. इस region को हम क्या कहते हैं? Thoracic cavity. And known as thoracic cavity, and it encloses very important organs such as heart and lungs. And from the diaphragm downwards up to the pelvic region is the abdominal cavity. Abdominal cavity, and it encloses some important organs of the digestive system and excretory system, that is kidney and ureters, and also important blood vessels. So now we can see that first of all stomach is J-shaped. So if you see, it appears like the alphabet J, hence it is said that it is J-shaped, and it is a muscular bag-like structure, and it is positioned on the upper left part of the abdominal cavity. Now since this is the abdominal cavity and this is the upper part of the abdominal cavity and this is the lower, and this is the upper left part of the abdominal cavity. So where is the stomach present? It is present on the upper left part of the abdominal cavity. Now the stomach is having four parts. It has four parts, and these are cardiac, this is fundic, this is body proper, and this is pyloric part. So the cardiac part is present close to the heart, and the opening of the esophagus to the stomach is regulated by the gastroesophageal sphincter. So what do we mean by gastroesophageal sphincter? Sphincter means ring of muscles, that is circular muscles that surrounds and controls the opening. Sphincter means circular muscles that will control the opening and closing. And gastro means stomach, esophageal means esophagus. That is, the opening of esophagus into the stomach is controlled by a sphincter, that is circular muscles which regulate its opening and closing. Now this fundus, this is a dome shaped part of the stomach. And then body, this is the main part of the stomach, this body proper. And then comes the pyloric. Pyloric is the part that opens into the first part of the small intestine, that is duodenum. It opens into the pyloric, opens into the first part of the intestine, small intestine, that is duodenum. And the opening of the stomach into the small intestine is regulated by the pyloric sphincter. That is again sphincter, circular muscles that will regulate the opening of pyloric part of the stomach into the duodenum. Now what happens to the food in the stomach? The food in the stomach is churned. That is, what is churning? Churning is the physical or the mechanical process by which the muscles of the stomach break down the food particles into semi-liquid substance and mix it. And this semi-liquid substance is called the chyme, and it is mixed with the gastric juice. Now the gastric juice, as it is secreted in the stomach, it is known as gastric juice. Gastric juice contains hydrochloric acid, that is HCl, mucus and pepsin. Now let us see what is the role of each one of these in the gastric juice. HCl makes the gastric juice acidic in nature. Pepsin active, because the pepsin, that is the enzyme, is active only in the presence of acidic medium, only in the acidic medium. So when the HCl will be released, the medium will become acidic and pepsin will be activated and will begin the digestion of protein present in the food to form smaller molecules, as the protein digestion begins in the stomach. HCl also kills the bacteria that enters stomach with the food. So any kind of bacteria that will enter with the food in the stomach will be killed by this HCl. Now the question should arise in your mind that if HCl can kill a bacteria, will it not damage the lining of the stomach? Yes, it can, but it is prevented due to the secretion of mucus, because the mucus secreted by the stomach protects the stomach wall from its own secretion of HCl. If mucus would not have been secreted, HCl would have definitely caused the erosion of the inner lining of the stomach, leading to formation of ulcer. Now, next comes pepsin. Pepsin is the enzyme which is secreted in the stomach, and it cleaves the proteins into peptones and proteases. Now, renin. Renin is a type of proteolytic enzyme, which is present in the infant's gastric juice. It is only present in infant's gastric juice, not in the adult. Why? Because the milk digesting enzymes called renin is not required in the adult human stomach. So it is not present in the gastric juice of the adult. It is only present in infant because they mainly feed on milk. So renin is the milk digesting enzyme. Now lipases. A small amount of lipase enzyme is also secreted by the gastric gland, and it is used to convert fats to di and monoglycerides. So this is all about the secretion of gastric juice in the stomach. Now the next part is the small intestine. You can see in the figure, this all is small intestine. This and this is the large intestine, and this in the center, this coiled narrow part is the small intestine. So small intestine is the largest part of the alimentary canal. It is narrow and arranged in the form of a coil. And the length of this small intestine varies in animals depending upon the type of the food they eat. If the animal is herbivorous or herbivores, that is, which feed only on plants, they have longer intestine because the digestion of cellulose takes time. If the animal is a carnivore, they have short intestine. Now the intestinal juice contains enzymes for the digestion of carbohydrates, proteins, fatty acids. So we can say that complete digestion of food takes place in the small intestine. And the small intestine also receives two glands. I told you in the previous slide that alimentary canal also consists of associated glands, and the associated glands which aid in digestion and are salivary, liver and pancreas. We have already seen the role of salivary gland in the mouth, and now the two other glands, the liver and the pancreas, these open in the small intestine. The small intestine is the longest part of the alimentary canal, and it consists of three parts: duodenum, jejunum and ileum. So this is duodenum. Duodenum is C-shaped. Its structure is shaped like a C, and the duct from the pancreas and the bile and liver secretions through the duct is added to the food by the hepatopancreatic duct. The name itself indicates by hepato we mean liver and pancreatic means from the pancreas, that is the duct from the liver and pancreas opens into the duodenum. Now jejunum. Jejunum Jejunum is the middle part of the small intestine, and next comes the ileum. Ileum is the highly coiled and opens into the large intestine. So this is jejunum and this is ileum. And in the small intestine, three major digestive juices are secreted: bile juice, pancreatic juice and intestinal juice. So the bile juice is secreted by the liver and it is yellowish fluid, and it aids in the digestion of lipids and it activates lipase enzymes. So the main components of bile juice is bilirubin, biliverdin, bile salts, cholesterol and phospholipids. And the physiological role, it emulsifies fats. That is, it breaks down the larger fat particles into smaller particles, increasing the surface area for the enzymatic action. And the lipase enzyme is activated, which aids in lipid digestion. Now pancreatic juice. Pancreatic juice contains the following enzymes in the inactive forms, like trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidase, amylase, lipase, nuclease. So the trypsinogen is activated by enterokinase secreted from the intestinal mucosal layer, and it converts inactive form of trypsinogen into active trypsin, which acts on protein and converts it into dipeptides. That is, it breaks down protein. Then comes chymotrypsinogen. This is the inactivated form of the or the inactive form of the enzyme, which is activated by trypsin to chymotrypsin, and it acts on proteins and breaks down protein into dipeptides. Now procarboxypeptidases, it is activated by trypsin into carboxypeptidase, which is the active form, and it acts on proteins and peptides and cleaves the terminal amino acids from the peptides. Amylase, secreted in active form, and it breaks down starch or the polysaccharides into disaccharides. Lipase, secreted in active form. This is also secreted in active form and does not require any activating agent. And this lipase breaks down fats, triglycerides into diglycerides and monoglycerides. Nuclease, this is also secreted in the active form, and this nuclease enzyme breaks down nucleic acid, that is the DNA and RNA, and converts nucleic acid into nucleotides and nucleosides. So I told you in the previous slide that the small intestine secretes bile juice, pancreatic juice and intestinal juice. So we have discussed about the two, and now we come to the third one, that is the intestinal juice, also known as succus entericus. Now the source of this intestinal juice is the lining of the small intestine. Major enzymes present are disaccharidases, dipeptidases, lipases, nucleosidases, lactases. Disaccharidases converts maltose to glucose. Dipeptidases dipeptides into simple amino acids. Lipases converts diglycerides into monoglycerides and monoglycerides into fatty acids and glycerol. Nucleosidases converts nucleotides into nucleosides, sugars and nitrogenous bases, and lactases converts lactose into glucose. You don't need to go into depth about these. So I have just told you the names of the enzyme, which is enough for you at this level, and you will study in detail about this in the higher classes. Now the additional components in the intestinal juice is mucus, which provides protection to the lining, that is this intestinal lining, and lubrication so that the movement can be easy. And the final digestion and absorption of carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, nucleic acid takes place at this stage. So I hope you remember I had told you in the beginning of the lecture that the entire process of nutrition consists of ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. So we had started with ingestion when we have taken food through the mouth. Then we were discussing about the various process of digestion which we have done so far, and then in the small intestine absorption took place. So we have covered ingestion, digestion and absorption so far. So I again repeat, in the small intestine, the digestion and absorption of carbohydrates, proteins, lipids and nucleic acids takes place. So the next part of the alimentary canal is large intestine. Large intestine is divided into three parts: cecum, colon and rectum. You can see here the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine, then comes the colon, and the last part is the rectum. So cecum contains symbiotic microorganism, and vermiform appendix is also attached to the cecum. So this point is very important from objective question as well as short questions, because it can be asked that in which part of the alimentary canal is symbiotic microorganism present, or to which part of the alimentary canal is the vermiform appendix attached. So if it is mentioned small intestine or large, then you will write large intestine if it is given in the option. But if cecum is given in the option, you will mention it cecum. Now we come to the next part, that is the colon. It is divided into four regions: ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and sigmoid colon, that is S-shaped. And the colon is mainly involved in the water absorption. Most of the water is absorbed here, and the formation of fecus takes place. Then the last part or the terminal part is the rectum, which temporarily stores the fecal matter or the feces and opens to the anus for the elimination of waste. Mucus is released in this part of the alimentary canal, that is large intestine, to facilitate the passage of feces, which is the main secretion of large intestine. Mucus is alkaline solution and shields the intestinal lining from the mechanical harm as well as the acids that the microorganisms produce in the colon. Now the gut microbiota which are present here ferment the leftover carbohydrates in the large intestine, because the large intestine does not release any digestive enzymes like the small intestine. So the gut microbiota, what do? They ferment the leftover carbohydrates. So mainly in the large intestine, absorption of water takes place and the formation of fecal matter takes place. We have discussed so far the alimentary canal. And in the very beginning of the lecture, I told you that alimentary canal also contains associated glands. Associated glands, that is salivary gland, liver and pancreas, which aid in digestion, which help in digestion. Salivary gland, we have already discussed. Now we come to the next, that is the liver. So liver, this you can see in the structure, this is the liver and this is the gallbladder which is attached to it. And this is the common hepatic duct. Hepatic means liver and duct means the tube or the passage coming from the liver. And this is a common bile duct. Common bile duct means this is containing duct from the liver as well as from the gallbladder, and hence it is known as common bile duct. Now this bile is which is secreted by the liver is stored in the gallbladder, and it is greenish yellow alkaline liquid, and it consists of bile salts, bile pigments, that is bilirubin and biliverdin, cholesterol and phospholipids. Now, what is the role of bile salt? It emulsifies fat. Emulsification means breaking a large fat globule into smaller globules to increase its surface area, which will aid in digestion and absorption. So emulsification is simply the breaking up of a large fat globule into smaller droplets. इसको आप घर पे भी करके देख सकते हैं. अगर आप पानी लें, उसमें ऑयल डालें, तो you will see a large globule. But if you shake it very vigorously, उसको आप बहुत कस के हिला दें, तो आप देखेंगे उसमें छोटे छोटे ड्रॉपलेट्स बन जाएंगे, क्योंकि जो फैट ग्लोब्यूल होगा वो क्या हो जाएगा, इमल्सिफाई हो जाएगा. अब बाइल पिगमेंट्स का क्या रोल होता है? बाइल पिगमेंट्स बाइल को कलर देते हैं. दैट इज bilirubin gives orange yellow color and biliverdin is responsible for green color. Now cholesterol and phospholipids, they do not have any role in digestion, and we can say that cholesterol is also removed from the body through the bile. Now what is the primary function of bile? It neutralizes acidity. Acidity, I told you about chyme. that through the mechanical pressure, the the food is churned in the stomach, forming semi-solid chyme. And since HCl is released in the stomach, the chyme is acidic nature. So to neutralize the acidity, bile is released, which is alkaline, and thus what it does, it neutralizes the acid, which was the source of which was stomach. And this acid is to be neutralized because then only the pancreatic enzyme will act. So bile, what is bile doing? It is neutralizing the acidity of chyme and creating an alkaline medium for the pancreatic enzymes to act. And secondly, it emulsifies fat, that is breaks large fat globules into smaller droplets, increasing the surface area for enzymatic action. Emulsification, I already told you, the conversion of large size fat globules into very fine fat droplets is known as emulsification. So pancreas is a large gland which lies parallelly beneath the stomach, and it lies between the stomach and the U-shaped duodenum. So this is the pancreas. And about the pancreatic juice, we have already discussed when we were discussing the small intestine. So I'll just briefly tell you that pancreatic juice contains enzymes like pancreatic amylase, trypsin, and lipases. Now assimilation. Now the food that is absorbed is carried by the blood to all parts of the body. Then it enters each and every cell, and the cell will use it for growth and repair. Now, the process in which absorbed food is taken into the cells is called assimilation. So, absorption is different and assimilation is different. Absorption is the entry of food crossing the walls, that is the cell linings, and entry into the blood, whereas assimilation is when the blood carries these absorbed food to all parts of the body into each and every cell, and in the cell they provide energy for growth and repair. So the blood carries digested and dissolved food to all parts of the body is assimilation. Now digestion. Digestion is the last part of nutrition. I hope you remember. Ingestion, absorption, ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and egestion. These were the 5 steps. I again repeat: ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and egestion. So now we come to the last part. The food which is not digested cannot be absorbed. So the undigested food, it cannot be absorbed and it will pass into the large intestine. Now what will happen in the large intestine? I have told you that maximum water is absorbed in the large intestine and the leftover carbohydrate is broken down by the gut microbiota, and so the water will be absorbed with the help of villi. Villi are just that the intestinal lining is folded to form finger-like projections in this manner. So the intestinal lining is folded. Even the small intestinal lining is, the lining of the small intestine is also folded, and so that the surface area is increased for absorption. So in the similar manner, in the large intestine also, the lining is thrown into finger, is folded, forming finger-like projections, and these are called villi. And so the water is absorbed with the help of these villi, and the undigested food becomes solid, which is called feces or stool, and the expulsion of it through the anus is called egestion. And exit of feces is controlled by anal sphincter. Sphincter, we have already discussed that these are circular muscles, which regulate the opening. So this is all about egestion and the process of nutrition in animals. So we discussed the 5 steps: ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and egestion. So with this, the process of nutrition in animals is completed. Now there is another very important topic, that is dental caries. What are dental caries? Dental caries actually when we eat any sugary food. So the bacteria in the mouth will act on that sugar. See, this is our teeth. It consists of 3 parts. That is the crown, it's the neck, and this is the root. This is embedded in the gums, and this crown is exposed in the oral cavity. Now this crown consists of an outer enamel, dentine, and below the dentine is pulp cavity, which consists of nerves. And this is the root of the root, and this is embedded in the socket, that is in the gums. And here there are nerves and blood vessels which enter the pulp cavity. Now what happens if we eat any sugary food and do not brush or gargle? Then the bacteria which are present in our mouth, will act on this sugar and produce acid. Now what will acid do? It will dissolve the calcium salts from this enamel, tooth enamel, and then so the enamel will be degraded, and then it will reach the dentine, that is the next layer, and in the dentine also it will do the same and form holes. So what will happen? Holes बन जाएंगे इसमें, अगर आपने बहुत लंबे समय तक ट्रीटमेंट नहीं किया तो, और ये persist करती है कंडीशन, तो what will happen? Holes will be formed, and these holes are known as cavities. Now formation of cavities, अब enamel आपका degrade हो गया. Now you have come to the dentine में भी holes बनना शुरू हो गए. Now as soon as we reach the dentine, we come near to the pulp cavity. अब जैसे जैसे ये होल बड़ा होता जाएगा, क्या होगा? हम उतना ही नजदीक पहुंचते जाएंगे पल्प कैविटी के. और पल्प कैविटी में क्या है? नर्व्स और ब्लड वेसल हैं. तो जितना हम नजदीक पहुंचेंगे उतना क्या होगा? हमें दर्द होने लगेगा. तो अब क्या होगा कि जो एसिड प्रोड्यूस होगा वो डायरेक्टली क्या करेगा? इन नर्व्स को इफेक्ट करेगा, इरिटेट करेगा. और अगर अभी भी इनको क्लीन नहीं किया गया या इनको फिल नहीं कराया गया तो क्या होगा? बैक्टीरिया विल एंटर द पल्प कैविटी, और यहाँ क्या हो जाएगा? इन्फेक्शन हो जाएगा, एंड दिस विल कॉज सिवियर पेन. So if we do not clean our teeth properly, they become covered with sticky yellowish layer of food particles and bacteria, और इसको कहा जाता है डेंटल प्लेक. और ये जो प्लेक होता है ये टीथ को कवर कर लेता है, और अब जब टीथ को कवर कर लेगा तो क्या होगा कि जो सलाइवा है वो एक्ट नहीं कर पाएगा, और एक्ट नहीं कर पाएगा तो वो इस एसिड को न्यूट्रलाइज नहीं कर पाएगा जो बैक्टीरिया प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है, और धीरे धीरे हमारे दांत में क्या होगा? डिके होता चला जाएगा. दैट इज, इट विल डिग्रेड द लेयर्स and form a hole and reach the pulp cavity. So this is dental carie. So we have to be very particular, and we have to brush our teeth properly, especially at night, because that is the longest duration when you do not gargle or you do not eat anything. So the bacteria gets a longer period of time to act. So the night period or the night time is the longest duration when the bacteria gets to act on your teeth. So you have to definitely brush your teeth before you go to sleep. So this is all about animal nutrition. I hope you understood. The link for the notes is given in the description. Do like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.